What if the sweetest, most trusted face in Smallville was hiding a nightmare no script could dare to write Allison Mack Rose as a fan favorite? But behind the spotlight, her life spiraled into manipulation control and a shocking truth that left Hollywood and fans completely stunned. Allison Mack as Chloe Sullivan. Before the truth surfaced, she was simply the smartest, kindest soul in Smallville. Yet hidden beneath that warmth was a story no one was prepared to face. Born on July 29, 1982 in Preetz, Germany, Allison Mack grew up in California, the daughter of an opera singer father and a teacher mother, stepping into commercials as a child long before fame found her. At just 19, she became Chloe Sullivan, a character who would anchor the series for 9 seasons with wit, loyalty, and emotional honesty, evolving into the iconic Watchtower and the most human presence in Clark Kent's world. Fans trusted her. They saw themselves in her. But behind the scenes, the trajectory shifted. After the show ended, her career slowed to smaller roles in series like Wilfred and The Following, while her personal life grew increasingly complex. In 2017, she entered a controversial marriage with actress Nikki Klein, later revealed as part of a larger hidden structure tied to NX1 How does someone so beloved drift into something so dark? The answer stunned the world. Mack became deeply involved in NXYVM, eventually pleading guilty in 2019 to racketeering charges linked to her role in the secret subgroup DOS, where manipulation, coercion, and abuse were exposed in chilling detail. Sentenced to 21 months in prison, she was released in 2023, stepping into a quieter life marked by reflection rather than spotlight. By 2026, at 44, she remains largely out of public view, pursuing studies in social work and expressive arts therapy, even launching a podcast to confront her past. Her future remains uncertain, part cautionary tale, part search for redemption. And perhaps that is the most haunting truth of all. Sometimes the brightest characters carry the darkest untold stories. Tom Welling as Clark Kent/Kal-El. Thomas Joseph Welling, born April 26, 1977 in Putnam Valley, New York, never set out to become a symbol of heroism. Yet for a generation, he quietly became one. Long before Smallville, his life was grounded in movement and routine, growing up across multiple states focused on sports and later working construction, before a modeling opportunity shifted his direction toward acting. At 24, he stepped into Clark Kent, not as a finished superhero, but as a young man still learning who he was. That choice, both by the writers and Welling himself, reshaped how audiences saw Superman. His Clark hesitated, struggled, questioned. And that humanity became the heart of the series. Behind the scenes, Welling also directed several episodes, a quiet, creative influence rarely recognized by viewers. When the show ended, he didn't chase the noise of blockbuster fame. Instead, he chose selective roles, including Marcus Pierce in Lucifer, while slowly building a more private life. His marriage to Jamie White ended in 2015 after years together, but by 2019, he had begun a new chapter with Jessica Rose Lee, embracing fatherhood and a quieter existence in California. Then, in January 2025, a DUI arrest in Wairika surfaced sudden, jarring, and deeply at odds with the image he had carried for over a decade. The legal outcome was contained, but the contrast lingered. How does someone so closely tied to moral clarity confront a moment like that? By 2026 at 49, Welling continues to move forward in a more measured rhythm, co-hosting Talkville, attending fan conventions, and working without urgency. The spotlight has softened. And somewhere between who he was and who he is now, the story no longer belongs to a hero, but to a man still finding his balance. Erica Durance as Lois Lane. Erica Durance, born June 21, 1978 in Calgary. Alberta didn't arrive in Hollywood chasing glamour. She arrived carrying something quieter, something rooted far from the spotlight. Long before Smallville, her world was a turkey farm in rural Canada, where discipline wasn't taught through scripts but through routine labor and patience. When she stepped into acting in 1999, moving to Vancouver, it wasn't a leap into fame, it was a slow, uncertain climb through auditions and rejection. Then Lois Lane appeared. Not polished, not perfect, sharp, impulsive, alive. From season 4 onward, Durrance reshaped the character into someone audiences didn't just admire, but recognized. Her chemistry with Clark felt unforced, almost accidental, as if two worlds kept colliding in ways neither could fully control. It became one of the emotional anchors that carried the show forward. Yet while her on-screen presence grew stronger, her off-screen life unfolded in a different rhythm. After Smallville, she chose consistency over spectacle. Leading Saving Hope for years and stepping into producing and directing, building a career that was steady rather than explosive. But beneath that stability, her personal life carried fractures. 2 marriages, both ending in divorce, the second quietly dissolving after years of separation before becoming official in 2024. Is it possible that the woman who embodied independence for millions was in reality searching for something simpler? By 2026, at 48, Durrance remains active in television, appearing in Canadian productions like Tracker and Wildcards. Yet her voice has shifted. She speaks openly about stepping away, about working with children, about a life that exists beyond performance. And in that choice, there's a quiet transformation, not away from who she was, but toward something she may have been seeking all along. Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor. Michael Owen Rosenbaum, born July 11, 1972 in Oceanside, New York, built a career on making people laugh, yet somehow became the most unforgettable villain in Smallville. Long before the cold stares and calculated menace of Lex Luthor, his life was shaped by instability. Growing up in Indiana in a large family after his parents' divorce, learning early how humor could soften tension and connect people. Acting wasn't instant success. It was persistence, small steps, and the quiet pressure of proving himself in New York. At 29, he stepped into Lex not as a monster, but as a man slowly unraveling. His performance carried charm, vulnerability, and pain, turning every interaction with Clark into something intimate and tragic. Fans didn't just fear him, they understood him. And perhaps that's what made it unsettling. Behind the scenes, Rosenbaum famously shaved his head daily for the role, committing fully to a character he knew would define him. But here lies the paradox. How does one of television's most chilling villains become one of the most beloved personalities off-screen? After leaving the show in season 7, he chose not to chase the same spotlight. Instead, he built a diverse path, appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy, leading Impastor, voicing iconic characters, and forming a band. His podcast, Inside of You, revealed something unexpected: warmth, humor, and a deep curiosity about people. His personal life remains almost entirely private, with no public marriage or family narrative, an absence that only adds to the intrigue. By 2026, at 54, Rosenbaum thrives quietly, creating, performing, and connecting on his own terms. And in the end, the greatest contradiction remains: the man who played Lex Luthor so perfectly may have done it by understanding humanity better than anyone expected. Stay with us. Comment your thoughts and dive deeper into untold stories on legends of classic Hollywood, because this is only the beginning. Kristen Kreuk as Lana Lang. Kristen Kreuk, born December 30th, 1982 in Vancouver, Canada, once stood at the center of a story about innocence, yet years later her name would briefly brush against something far more unsettling. When she first appeared in Smallville at just 18, Lana Lang felt almost untouchable in her softness. She wasn't loud nor defiant. She carried a quiet sadness, a sense of longing that made her the emotional beginning of Clark Kent's journey. For many, she was the heart of the early seasons, even as fans remained divided about her place in the story. But her real life began far from scripted emotion. Raised by architect parents with a multicultural background rooted in Chinese and Jamaican heritage, Kreuk's early years were defined by discipline and physical training in gymnastics and karate until scoliosis forced her to step away. Acting wasn't part of the original plan. It found her unexpectedly, and she adapted with a calm determination that would later define her career. After leaving Smallville, she avoided the chaotic pull of Hollywood fame, choosing roles that allowed control and consistency. She led Beauty and the Beast, then Burden of Truth, and by 2024, anchored Murder in a Small-Town Building, a steady, respected presence, rather than chasing spectacle. Her personal life remained notably private. No public marriages, no children, a lifestyle shaped by simplicity. Yet one question lingered. How close had she come to something darker? In the early 2000s, Croik became involved in NX1VM introduced through industry connections. She left in 2013, years before its crimes were exposed later, expressing shock and dismay in 2018 as the truth surfaced. She was never charged, her name ultimately separated from the scandal. By 2026, at 43, Croik lives quietly in Vancouver, continuing her work with intention. And perhaps her story isn't about falling into darkness, but recognizing it and choosing to walk away before it was too late. Justin Hartley as Oliver Queen/Green Arrow. Before the headlines questioned his personal life, he was the effortless hero who made everything look easy in Smallville. Justin Hartley, born January 29, 1977 in Knoxville, Illinois, brought Oliver Queen to life with a mix of charm, wit, and hidden damage, a billionaire playboy masking deeper scars. His arrival reshaped the series, injecting humor, pace, and the first real sense of a larger superhero world. Long before that, Hartley's path was steady but uncertain. Raised in Illinois, he studied history and theater, slowly working his way into acting without instant breakthrough. There was no overnight success, just persistence auditions, and the quiet pressure to prove he belonged. After Smallville, something shifted. He didn't stay in the shadow of Green Arrow, he broke past it. His defining leap came with This Is Us earning industry recognition, followed by Leading Tracker, where he not only starred but produced, solidifying his place as a primetime force. Yet success came alongside turbulence. His second marriage to Chriselle Staus ended abruptly in 2019, sparking public attention and speculation. What does success feel like when your private life unfolds under a spotlight you never asked for? By 2026, at 49, Hartley stands at the peak of his career, married to Sophia Pernas, building a quieter, more grounded life while continuing to lead on screen. And perhaps his story isn't about avoiding the fall, but learning how to rise stronger every single time. John Glover as Lionel Luthor. Before he became television's most chilling father figure, there was a quieter battle shaping the man behind the performance. John Glover, born August 7, 1944 in Kingston, New York, carried into Smallville a lifetime of disciplined theater and emotional depth that would redefine what a villain could be. His Lionel Luthor wasn't simply cruel. He was elegant, calculating, and dangerously human, the kind of presence that lingered long after each scene ended. Long before Hollywood, Glover built his craft on stage, studying at Towson University and refining his voice at the Barter Theater in Virginia. Acting was never about fame, it was about precision. That dedication would later earn him a Tony Award, a recognition that quietly followed him into television. But behind that success was something more personal. His father's struggle with Alzheimer's became a defining force in his life, pushing Glover beyond performance into advocacy. How do you portray control on screen while facing helplessness in real life? After Smallville, his career never faded, it evolved. From voice roles like the Riddler in DC animation to appearances in And Just Like That. And Gremlins, he remained consistently present, even into his 80s. In his personal life, he found lasting stability, sharing decades with his partner Adam Kurtzman before marrying in 2016. By 2026, at 81, Glover continues to work, create, and speak for causes larger than himself. And perhaps that is his greatest role of all, not the villain audiences feared, but the man who chose compassion when life offered him something far more difficult. Annette O'Toole as Martha Kent. Before she became the mother who grounded a future Superman, there was a life shaped by discipline, art, and quiet endurance. Annette O'Toole, born April 1st, 1952 in Houston, Texas, entered Smallville not as a rising star, but as a seasoned performer carrying decades of experience. Her Martha Kent wasn't dramatic or loud. She was steady, practical, and deeply human, the emotional anchor that made Clark's journey feel real. Long before television, her path began in dance. Trained by her mother from the age of 3, she moved to Los Angeles as a teenager, balancing performance with uncertainty, learning to adapt in an industry that rarely offered stability. Acting became not just a career, but a continuation of that discipline, refined, patient, and enduring. While her role in Smallville brought renewed recognition, her career had already spanned decades, from It to Nash Bridges, even earning an Academy Award nomination for songwriting. Yet behind the steady success was a quieter, personal evolution. Her first marriage ended in divorce after 10 years, a chapter that reshaped her life before she found lasting partnership with actor Michael McKean in 1999. What does it mean to build a life that isn't defined by one role? By 2026. At 74, O'Toole continues to thrive through Virgin River, where her presence remains as warm and grounding as ever. She lives between acting and music, anchored in family and creativity. And perhaps her legacy isn't in the spotlight, but in the quiet strength that taught generations what it truly means to be home. John Schneider as Jonathan Kent. Before the lawsuits, the losses, and the headlines, he was the moral backbone of Smallville, the man who taught a future Superman what it meant to be human. John Richard Schneider, born April 8, 1960 in Mount Kisco, New York, brought Jonathan Kent to life with a quiet authority, firm, principled, and deeply protective. His presence wasn't just supportive. It defined Clark's sense of right and wrong, making his eventual on-screen death one of the most devastating moments in the series. But long before that, Schneider's life was marked by both curiosity and danger. As a child magician, he once nearly died attempting a Houdini-style escape, a moment that hinted at a life willing to take risks. His early fame came with the Dukes of Hazzard, but sustaining a career proved far more complex than achieving it. After Smallville, he continued working steadily, notably in The Haves and the Have-Nots, while his personal life grew increasingly turbulent. Multiple marriages ended in divorce, including a long relationship with Ellie Castle, with whom he shares 3 children. Then came deeper blows. Financial strain after a devastating 2016 flood destroyed his Louisiana studio, followed by legal troubles, including a brief jail sentence in 2018 over unpaid support. By 2026, at 66, Schneider remains active, but his life is shadowed by ongoing legal disputes and financial pressure. How does a man known for stability navigate such instability? And perhaps that's the quiet irony. Sometimes the man who teaches others how to stand strong must spend a lifetime learning how to stand again himself. Cassidy Freeman, as Tess Mercer. Before her name was tied to quiet controversy, she had already mastered the art of mystery in Smallville. Cassidy Freeman, born April 22, 1982 in Chicago, Illinois, entered the series at 26 with a presence that felt both controlled and unpredictable. As Tess Mercer, she wasn't just a successor to the Luthor legacy, she was its evolution, balancing intelligence with emotional ambiguity, keeping audiences unsure whether to trust or fear her. Off-screen, Freeman's path was shaped by a creative household, growing up as the youngest of 4 with her brother Crispin pursuing voice acting. Acting became her own language, one that relied on subtlety rather than spectacle. Yet behind that calm trajectory, moments of tension surfaced. In 2017, she publicly accused actor Jeremy Piven of misconduct, choosing to speak rather than remain silent, an act that quietly defined her off-screen strength. After Smallville, her career unfolded steadily, not explosively. She found depth in roles like Katie Longmire and later Amber Gemstone, building a reputation for layered performances. In her personal life, she chose stability, marrying Ben Ellsworth in 2019 and raising 2 children away from constant attention. By 2026 at 44, Freeman continues to work with intention, returning in projects like Chasing Summer. And perhaps her story isn't about chasing the spotlight, but learning when to step into it and when to walk away. Laura Vandervoort as Kara Kent / Supergirl. Before she became a symbol of strength on screen, her life had already begun with a fight most never see. Laura Vandervoort, born September 22, 1984 in Toronto, Canada, survived a life-threatening case of meningitis as an infant, a beginning that quietly defined everything that followed. When she entered Smallville at 22, her Kara wasn't just powerful, she carried a protective intensity, a sense of duty that felt earned rather than written. Growing up, she channeled that resilience into discipline, earning a black belt in karate long before Hollywood called. Acting became an extension of that control, shaping characters who balanced strength with vulnerability. After Smallville, her career unfolded steadily through series like V and Bitten, alongside a consistent presence in television films. Yet her personal life carried its own turning points. A broken engagement in 2015 marked a pause, a reset. Years later, in 2025, she chose a different path, marrying Adam Coates in an intimate ceremony before celebrating with a larger gathering months later. So what defines strength, surviving the past or choosing peace in the present? By 2026 at 41, Vandervoort lives a grounded life in Toronto, balancing work with a sense of fulfillment that no role could replace. And perhaps her story isn't about being Supergirl, but about learning how to live beyond the need to be one. Some of them are gone. Some are still here, carrying stories no script ever dared to tell. The faces that once felt untouchable in Smallville were never as invincible as they seemed. Behind the friendships, the heroism, and the small-town hope, there were broken lives, quiet comebacks, scandals, losses, and moments of survival no one saw coming. Because maybe that's the truth, fame didn't protect them. It only made the fall more visible. And here's the part that lingers. Sometimes the people who played heroes, villains, and saviors were fighting battles far darker than anything on screen. So tell me, which story stayed with you the most? And who do you think paid the highest price for the role that made them famous? But now, think about this. When Clark looked around and called them his family, how many of them were already slowly falling apart behind the scenes?